Hello, artists, YouTubers. Good morning from beautiful The Villages, Florida. A gorgeous day. A little exercise here before I start my class later this afternoon. Talking about tone, value, and seeing and converting color into black and white. So what I got here is a simple still life setup. An orange and an apple on a cutting board with a dark gray background. I've roughly sketched out two versions. So the first half I'm going to put black and white, and then the second half, bottom half, I will put the color version here. But I want to be able to show how I approach seeing these colors in a grayscale, because I believe that getting the value correct is more important than getting the actual color correct. So what I've mixed up is a big pile of 50% gray, black, white, gray, 80% black, and then a 30% version. So I've got 3 piles of color. I use my fancy Utrecht 1028 mixing knife. I really love this tool. I'm going to do the black and white version primarily in knife. The first bit here is to dip a paper towel in some OMS and just get this background put in, because I don't really want to spend a lot of time there. So just kind of get some of this out there with a paper towel. That looks to be about the same as what I've got there. Again, my primary interest is the objects. I can touch this up as we go. So that's enough for me with that. I'm also going to put my timer on this. So 8 minutes, let's go. Try to get this front top piece done in short order. I'm going to switch to a smaller blade because I want to really keep the color just real choppy, real loose, and start with some darks and look at it from a very geometric perspective to see if I've got the value of that orange correct. So I like to do test marks and just put a little bit out there and see what that looks like. So the first question, or first problem I have to solve, is this orange shadow darker or lighter than the apple shadow? It looks darker, being that this is pretty much yellow. The apple is very yellow. I'm going to guess that this is a little bit lighter here, so I'm going to go with a darker version on this part of the orange. And just put some color out there. So the last pieces will be the lightest. So I'm working dark to light. So since I thought that apple was a little bit lighter, taking a little bit of the 50% pile and mixing it into the dark and putting that out here on the apple. Still looks a little bit darker, so just take a little bit more of that. And just looking at the basic geometric shape of that. So I have 2 shadows here. This shadow, that shadow. This definitely is a little bit lighter. Light is coming in from the top left. See what that 50% looks like. Looks about right on the canvas. It's coming right up into there. So I can move this paint around by pushing on the knife. Again, this is just an exercise to help me understand and see color as value. Needs to be a little darker. I also want to be very aware of the clock because I don't want to waste a lot of time on this. It's just an exercise. Okay, so we've got a fairly good representation of the shadow. Now, definitely this cast shadow here is a lot darker. To me, looking at it, looking about 80% black. So we can just put that knife down and help redefine the drawing, which was very loose to begin with. It's coming all the way across there. Going to use the paper towel just to help move some of that around. Got some darker creases in the board back here. Wipe my knife off. This is why I like using knives. They're very quick to clean. Let's get a secondary pile of color out here. It's a little bit lighter. Looks like it's leaning more towards the 30%. Go right up to the edge, do not blend. Outside angle here. It's lightest right there. It appears to be about correct. The apple is a little bit lighter. Again, just pushing it up to the edge, looking at the shapes. Try not to think that it's an apple. Alright, got a little more paint mixed up. Got a fresh towel. Starting to make some adjustments to a few of the areas. Just dipped in a little OMS. You can wipe back, make some interesting marks with just the towel. One of the things I noticed is that I've got my what I thought the orange was is a little bit too dark. So it appears to be more in the 30-20% range. That looks more accurate to me. out here. I think I've got the apple right, at least primarily for the major spot of color. So, what to do now? Take the knife, just scrape a little bit of this off, move it around, help clean up the drawing a little bit, wipe it off the rag. Again, we're not looking for a masterpiece, we're looking for a study in translating color to value. So with somewhat of a light touch, again, I could also go in here if I'm not happy with that. You just wipe it back so it's a very thin coat of paint. Not touching that geometric shape out here for the dark. Just wiping paint off. I could take the knife now and very lightly scumble the correct value over that. And with a very light touch, do some minor blending. Scumbling. Letting some of the layer below come through, but getting it to the right value. All right, back, here we go. And just looking now to clean up some of the values and double check, what do we have for the big masses of color. That looks about right for this orange. And the apple highlight is a little bit lighter. So I've got about a 30% here, got about a 20% here, and just putting in these big shapes and clean up some of the edges, and then with the knife just go around and do some light cross hatching and scraping and blending, using the rag frequently to make sure I'm not infecting these major areas of color. Again, looking at the shape, this highlight comes around there, so I can take this paint, get a little more paint, a little brighter up there, and take the edge of that knife and just push it over that dark color, looking at the shape. Lift a little bit more down here, and there's a little highlight, reflected light back here on that edge. Looks to be same value as right in here, almost 20%, 10%. I'm just going to put a spot out here, push the knife, clean up the edge, lift it off, you're done. There you got a lot of paint there, I need to get that off. And then I can just very lightly touch the edge to help with that transition. For this area here, just a minor detail, not too worried about that. But I have to start with the dark. It's a spot that comes into here, using the edge of the knife. It's a little bit lighter out here. Again, not too worried about that. And then this transition to the highlight where the light is hitting it most predominantly, just taking the edges where the two values touch and scraping It's a little bit heavy right here. Scrape that back. Wipe it off. Get this just lightly blended to help with the transition. The background actually is lighter than the foreground here. So while I took a rag and did some modifications there, I could just get a little bit, looks like about a 70-80% on that back edge of the knife. Bring some of that color down into here, pushing on that. Alright, we got that, we got that. That. This here, got a little reflected light coming up. A little later. Just dab it on. And then use the knife to crosshatch and help with the transition. Okay, another 15 or so minutes of dibble-dabbling around. I think the proof in the pudding then, after you've made some adjustments, take your source photo and compare some of the areas. The background I'm not too interested in. It's just a holding place for these objects. But if I fold the photograph and put it up against the painting and squint, does it appear that the value is the same? Not looking at color, is my gray the same darkness as the orange in this area? Put it right next to it and compare. If I look at the apple, just fold it, put it right here, and compare the shadow to the shadow here and the highlight area there, and see if I roughly have the correct values painted in. I could get down into the shadow area here and just try to compare. Squint, give yourself that might be a little dark on that shadow here, just a little. It's not black. Right underneath the orange it's black, but then it starts to quickly transition into maybe a 90% or 80%. So that's the first step of the exercise, is trying to render the color as a value. So I hope that may have helped a little bit. 99% done with knife. I softened a little bit of the background just to fill it in a little bit with a brush, but just using the edge to blend and transition these edges from one value to the other to help with the softening effect. Okay, we'll do the color version now.